Good morning, everyone, and we are on program, beginning program number 57. We finally made our way to the 9th petal, which is the final petal of the major unfolding series of petals. The synthesis petals, of course, have to be dealt with, but so much less is discussed about them by the Tibetan. I have some references and maybe some speculations when that time comes shortly. But now we'll finish off at least what I have to say about it at the moment, this 9th petal, with its colors yellow, orange, rose, blue, and indigo. It's the only petal in which we have both blue and indigo together, and I'm sure that that is significant. Normally, for petal number 6, we do not have here a double rose or a double yellow. We have the uncharacteristic insertion of blue, which is usually found in the middle petals, the 2nd, the 5th, and the 8th. But here we have a climactic sacrifice, sub-sacrifice petal, and we find that the blue is included. Anyway, here we are on petal number 9, so we've ended program 56 and beginning program 57. This is part 1 of the synthesis for petal 9. Generally, I cannot do them all in one program. And this is the quote that I've been using for all the sacrifice petals, and by now it should be familiar. These things have to become familiar so we know how the developmental process proceeds. The inner circle of petals is organized and vitalized in the hall of wisdom. And simultaneously, the middle circle unfolds. In the hall of wisdom, I think that these petals are also unfolding. When does the hall of wisdom begin? Does it begin before initiation? Usually the marker point is the 1st degree, but he sometimes seems to overlap and start the experience of the hall of wisdom somewhat before the 1st initiation. I don't know that we can pin it down exactly. The spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of souls, the hall of wisdom, the 1st degree, these all seem to go together, little chelaship and so forth. But there is some possibility of irregularity, and the cut and dried effect is not necessarily to be found, hard boundaries and markers. So, excuse me, simultaneously the middle circle unfolds so that 2 rows of petals are duly opened. And we paused on that word duly before to wonder whether that means open to the extent that they should be open or completely open. And I sort of prefer the first, because I definitely think there is unfoldment of the 7th petal and even the 8th before the 2nd initiation is taken. So not just a question of organization and vitalization, but actual unfoldment. 2 rows of petals are duly opened, and only the 3rd remains to be unclosed. That's an interesting term. This final opening, and does it mean that the opening of the sacrifice petals is the final opening, or that there is a final opening of the sacrifice petals? This final opening is effected during the period of treading the stages of the path of initiation. And generally in the Hall of Wisdom, the path of probationary initiation is being trodden. If we're working in the seventh and eighth petal, we are at least preparing for the first and second degree, respectively. Anyway, this final opening is effected during the period of treading the stages of the path of initiation. And in this round, which definitely concerns us, except in the historical sense, it is hastened by the rites of initiation and by the strenuous and abnormal efforts of the man himself, aided by the electrical work of the initiator wielding the rod of power. He seems to be, I would say, talking about both initiators, the Christ and the Lord of the world at the third. So, as I said, to truly understand exactly what goes on, we have to have the clairvoyant powers and see for ourselves and see the various differences and anomalies and contrasts between the different types of unfoldments. But I think we get the idea. What a man can do is to organize, coordinate, and vitalize. And then in this series of petals, he can work very strenuously and abnormally, which seems to imply that by his own efforts, some unfoldment is occurring, and more unfoldment later through the application of the rod of initiation. He has to reach, I would say, a certain degree of a certain condition in those petals, and maybe a certain degree of unfoldment even, before the rod of initiation can be applied. And the reason I say that is because of the statement that the initiate is initiate before he is initiated. Now, if you hear an occasional white noise sound, it's just one of those things that sort of comes through the ethers at this time. One cannot control that. I wish I could. Okay. So now we begin with those very important quotations that are found between 539 and 544 of Cosmic Fire. The petal of sacrifice for the mental plane, that's the sacrifice petal, demonstrates as the predominant bias of the soul, which is sacrificial, of course, as seen in a series of many lives spent by the initiate prior to his final emancipation. It is reflecting the tendency of the soul as it has been active in the life of the personality and has contributed over quite a number of lives now to the general unfoldment of the egoic lotus. It is the sacrificial demonstration by the soul. He becomes in his sphere the great sacrifice. That fits very well because it is the great sacrifice himself who applies the rod of initiation at the time of the third degree, which signifies the complete unfoldment of the 9 petals. He becomes in his sphere the great sacrifice. This stage can be seen objectively to the eye of the clairvoyant as dual in effect. And, you know, until an individual is this, a replica, a tiny replica, of the great sacrifice in his own sphere of influence, how can we say that he has taken the third initiation? So often this question of initiatory achievement is considered without duly considering the sacrifice involved. And, you know, so we have to ask every one who claims the second or third degree, what is the measure of your sacrifice? How have you demonstrated a sufficient completeness of sacrifice to warrant the degree of which you speak? So this stage can be seen objectively as the following. The mental unit becomes a radiant point of light. We are dealing with the sacrifice petals for the mental plane, and the mental unit is directly concerned there. Its four spiridae transmit force with intense rapidity. We saw probably at the conclusion of the sixth petal opening that the astral permanent atom was glowing with equal brilliance to the physical permanent atom. And the three higher petals unfold, and the 9-petal lotus is seen perfected. This does indicate the third degree. The probationary initiate is spending quite a number of lives before the final emancipation, and by that I'm pretty sure that we mean the fourth degree. So these many lives could have begun at the first degree, or even in a way with the reversal of the wheel which is occurring in the fifth degree, in petal number 5, when we are really, as an aspirant, oriented towards the higher of the pairs of opposites. So the sacrificial mode is ever increasing in potency. It may be the first law of the soul, but it's so fundamental to all real progress. And somehow I've duplicated this. So we have almost the full development of the mental unit. And as the 9th petal unfolds, I have suggested that whatever remains to be unfolded of the 7th and 8th is completely unfolded. I don't think he means the synthesis petals. I've asked myself that. Because if the 3 higher petals unfold, it does make the 9. It's not the 3 inmost petals. Well, there are various questions to be asked here about the degree of atomic matter and all of that in the lower vehicles, but really the unfoldment of the synthesis petals is more a question for the period that follows the third degree. Some degree of unfoldment has occurred, some appreciation of what synthesis is even follows the second degree as a conscious pursuit. But the real rapid development involved in the unfolding of the synthesis petals is something to occur between the third and fourth degree. And are there a number of lives between the third and fourth degree, or can they both be taken in the same life? We've been told that they can be. So the higher unfoldments are rapid indeed, and we have to do the preparatory work, and then they will be taken care of. That doesn't mean we don't work when we have the focus after the third degree on synthesis. We work very hard at becoming planetary in our consciousness, in our knowledge, and in our will. Then the other section, of course, is important. It's the quotation from the pages 822 to 824. We're dealing with petal 3 for the mental plane, and DK just calls it the utter sacrifice of all forever. It gets very simple. Now you kind of wonder, can a third degree initiate achieve the utter sacrifice of all forever? Because, you know, we have been told of the rich young man that he went sadly away when invited by the Christ to follow him. So there was something there that the rich young man, the third degree initiate, did not want to sacrifice. But in general, a high degree of sacrificial attainment is necessitated for the taking of this degree, and very soon the greater Buddhic love, which rapidly infuses the consciousness, will illustrate the need in the consciousness of the third degree initiate for the utter sacrifice of all forever. Of course, this theme of sacrifice does continue, because even in the Garden of Gethsemane there was a choice before the Christ. And the Tibetan seems to imply that the Christ was, well, not appalled, but certainly realizing with intensity the contrast of what he himself had planned with regard to the salvation of humanity, and what it is that the Lord of the world saw as the necessity and presented to him a choice which had not been previsioned by the Christ. So the utter sacrifice of all forever, and the bringing to a climax of the age-old tendency of the soul towards sacrifice, really beginning from the time that the solar angel takes increasing control during the process of the fifth petal. So I've said at least this stage leads to this utter sacrifice, which is for which a landmark moment occurs at the fourth degree. But the sacrifices, of course, continue until we find, I suppose, the universal Logos forever in the duration of the universe, giving all he is and has. Well, now we're in that 80-point outline that we have used to try to keep our thought straight as we have moved through the synthesis of these petals. Point 1, we're in the sacrifice tier. For the mental plane, these are the petals of will. For the mental plane, it is God's will to give all, of course, in the right way, as it may be appropriately given. Shambhala measures its giving acutely, and does not ever give inappropriately. It gives what can be assimilated, what can be withstood. So we're in the sacrifice tier, and we're in the division of the tier is the sacrifice petal. As we see, sacrifice. So the emphasis upon sacrifice is very strong. The color yellow, the law of sacrifice, the fourth ray, and of course the second and the first, both involved in giving all regardless of what may be the consequences for the form. By this will to give, the form will be destroyed, because it cannot possibly contain the new energies which are contacted in this act of giving as they're pouring in from the triad. The element most associated here, well, I've named the fire as associated with the mental plane and with the sacrifice petals. I think it is accurate. Earth, the outer knowledge petals, water, the love petals, fire, the sacrifice petals, and the air is life, the air is God, air for the synthesis petals. What is the division of the elemental triplicity most associated with this petal? Well, is it Aries or is it Sagittarius? I think we can certainly justify either one of them, and when we get into that section, we will do so. But Aries or Sagittarius is either one of them. will be involved from the Aries perspective. The sacrifice is very clear. The sacrificial lamb or lamb of God, the lamb slain from the foundations of the world. And the statement of the Bible that except a seed falleth in the earth and brings forth fruit, it is of no value. Of course, that's just a paraphrase. But you get the idea. A spirit is seeking form. Interestingly enough, we have the Abraham and Isaac story where Abraham is enjoined to sacrifice his son, but the angel stays his hand at the last moment. The father is to kill the son, but there are other methods which can be used where the son will be of great value in the expressing of the father aspect, such that people will realize that no man cometh unto the Father except through me, the Son. So there's so much about, I'll get into the idea here presented by Aries and how it fits so well with Uranus and the electric fire and the rod of the one initiator, more so than Sagittarius in a certain respect. I've scattered various statements about Sagittarius and Aries all through this series of commentaries on the Egoic Lotus. So in collecting them, I think a clearer idea will be presented. There's definitely, though, a great aspiration for that wider point of view, the soul point of view, which is conferred by Sagittarius, and the overcoming of illusion. Now that can be done by contact with pure being, with Aries, but Sagittarius is one of the intuitive signs. And it has this touch to the Buddhic plane. Jupiter, after all, its ruler, is associated with the Buddhic plane. So the great insight can come through Sagittarius, which dispels illusion, which is one of the great tasks of work within the ninth petal. By the time the ninth petal is unfolded and the third degree is taken, so much of what we call illusion, the sense of fragmentation, the sense of division, the capturing of the consciousness by multiplicity, veiling the unity, those things are taken care of. And Sagittarius, invoking the intuition, really participates in this. It's not a sign specifically associated with the taking of the third degree, but it is a sign which leads to the taking of the third degree. And if in the horoscope Aries, or let's say Capricorn, are also found significantly present, you have a story of progression from the Sagittarian dispelling of the illusions, not just the glamours. You know, the killing of the Stymphalian birds has a lot to do with the dispelling of illusions. Then also it can fit well in relation to this petal. Now, one of the reasons that I have chosen Aries, well, only one of the reasons, is because the petals do seem to reverse, at least in this diagram, where the lowest of the sacrifice petals should touch the third sublevel, the middle sacrifice petal the second sublevel of the higher mental plane, and the highest of the sacrifice petals touches the highest sublevel. Now, is this drawing accurate or just a product of necessity? That was where one of the early errors was made. You know, this was looked at as petal number 8, and this was looked at as petal number 7, and they were all shown as continuing to revolve in a clockwise manner, 7, 8, and 9, just like all the others, moving in a clockwise manner. But in terms of how the petals touch the different levels of the higher mental plane, there almost seems to be a suggestion that we rotate now in a counterclockwise manner, as the zodiac rotates. That still has to be worked out because, after all, DK does seem to be saying that all 9 petals at one point rotate in the same direction and the synthesis petals in the opposite direction. I hope you understand what I'm saying here. So I've been always starting with cardinal signs. Cardinal Aries at petal 1, cardinal Cancer at petal number 3, and would normally start with cardinal Aries at petal number 7, except that there seems to be some contrast in the behavior of this sacrifice tier. And so one could then start with mutable Sagittarius and end in the 9th petal with Aries, as one begins to be aware of what pure being is. Aries is one of those signs which introduces the candidate to the presence, to the meaning of pure being, and I think is therefore very suitably associated with this 9th petal. But we certainly have seen that we can make a case for the presence of just about every zodiacal sign in relation to every petal, and especially in relation to the latter petals. Anyway, we were told here by one of our mythologists that the Aries mythology is filled with contests concerning the father, a contest with the father, and certainly of the 3 fire signs, Aries represents the father aspect. And we do, for the first time in the initiatory regime, come in contact with the father wielding the flaming diamond, the rod of power, which is greater than the rod of the Bodhisattva. So Aries in the father aspect and the contact with Sanat Kumara as the initiator, this fits as well. Which of the 3 fires are most associated, or is most associated with this petal? Well, I'm calling it solar fire to electric fire. Solar fire very definitely so, and here solar fire is very prominent and even ascends powerfully over fire by friction because we are becoming the 3rd degree initiate. Another synthesis petal, the 3rd of the synthesis petals, is poised to open further, which happens at the 3rd degree. Venus, as a prime expression of the solar angel and of solar fire, is going to be very strong at this petal because the solar fire becomes dominant over fire by friction, just the way Venus becomes dominant over Mars. Venus, the planet of the solar angels and of one of the planets of solar fire. So fire by friction is being subdued. Mars is the major planet of fire by friction, and in the age-old battle between Venus and Mars, who are lovers in one respect and opponents in another, Venus is coming into its powerful position. So Venus defeats Mars at the 3rd degree. It's the 5th ray, and it's the Ajna center. These are involved in the 3rd degree, and Venus is the ruler of the Ajna center for disciples. Mercury can also be involved, of course. So Venus reduces friction. We know that. It has a harmonizing quality. And Mars is friction. Mars is subdued. So Venus is always unifying things, and that's very necessary in the overcoming of illusion, that we will have unified perceptions and not fragmentary perceptions. We're lost in the world of multiplicity, and the great underlying unity is veiled from our eyes. But the more we become the monad in expression, the more the unity prevails. So Venus contributes to the gradual harmonization, leading to the vision of the unity at the 3rd degree, the realization of the One. Venus contributes to that. Venus, in a way, is the sun, the aspect of the sun leading to the aspect of the father. There's also a line from the electric fire of the monad through Atma and into the sacrifice petals. This must be considered, and it's visible in the maps that the Tibetan has given us. Now, at this point, spirit is not just a latent factor, but it's really obtruding upon the consciousness. I've connected some of the eights here. It's more the end of the eighth petal work, but it's Sirius is connected with the 8, Scorpio the 8th sign, Mercury the guardian at the 8th gate. They all seem to be much involved with the latter part of the 8th petal, which is preparing us to go into the 9th. Well, as we're working in the latter part of the 8th petal, maybe with the temptations, we're already working in the 9th petal, which has been organized, coordinated, and well, we're organizing and coordinating. So electric fire is coming in strongly now, and we're really having intimations and intuitions of what the father aspect is. It's not just in the background. So the people who are taking the 3rd degree are going to be very interested in what is spirit, what is this ground of all being, what is this factor so close that it is invisible to so many. What is the planar focus associated with this petal? Well, certainly the higher mental plane is here. The Antikarana has been quite well built. The monastic permanent atom is present. The intuition is growing. It already started growing in relation to the 8th petal, and the taking of the 2nd degree tells us we have some Buddhic access, some intuitional access, and the law is coming in. That's another reason why Aries, a great sign of will, can be connected with the law and with the Atmic plane. Of course, Atma is ruled by Libra. It's opposite, but wherever the opposites do come together, and interestingly, Saturn, which falls in Aries, is the ruler of the Atmic plane. But Saturn also has so much first ray that when Aries has this form-taking tendency, it aligns with the form-taking tendency of Saturn. So the higher mental plane here is the main focus of the one who is moving towards the 3rd degree. It continues to be a main focus. And as I said, especially the monastic permanent atom, the abstract mind comes in here, and Aries gives the power to think abstractly and to set the jungle of illusion on fire, dissolving it in flames, and then a higher path appears. So increasingly, as we're working in this 9th petal, we're able to focus within the higher mental plane. Now that means focus within the causal body, surrounded by virtue and expressive of soul quality at all times. Now, that is not necessarily an act of will perfected until the 3rd degree is taken, and then we find ourselves not focusing in the personality at all, but just using it as an instrument as we focus consciousness within the causal body. I think, we should actually practice doing that, even imaginatively. So we have increasingly here in the 9th petal mental focus upon the higher mental plane. The individual can become the abstract thinker. Abstract thinking goes with Ray 3, but it also goes with Sagittarius, interestingly enough, when thinking about whether Sagittarius would have a strong role to play in this 9th petal. But Ray 3 and abstract thinking connect with the monastic permanent atom, which is the 3rd item in the spiritual triad. So we begin to see the world in big patterns, and we trust that the specifics will keep their appropriate place within the larger patterns that we begin to detect. So from that point of view, Sagittarius could be considered connected with the abstract point of view of the monastic permanent atom. When we build the bridge and we sort of declare, affirm, how does it go? Tension, visualization, projection. The word projection is so terribly Sagittarian. It's like shooting an arrow towards the monastic permanent atom and anchoring ourselves in the abstract perspective. The buddhi continues to grow because we're becoming ever more intuitive, and the presence of Sagittarius here, strong, contributes to that intuitive ability. Venus at the third degree, as a planetary logos, is much focused in buddhi, on the cosmic astral plane, the buddhic level of the cosmic astral plane. And there's more atmic reception, because we are knowing more what the divine will really is, and maybe not only some sense of the plan, but some faint sense of the purpose. The Antakarana has been quite well built, and we're beginning to set our sights upon the transcendental life. My old colleague, wonderful esoteric psychologist and occultist Robert Gerard, he used to distinguish between the transpersonal life of the soul and the transcendental life of the monad. So when the monastic permanent atom is conferring upon us a stream of energy where it's also aligned with Atma, the one and the three are definitely aligned. And I wonder if I can, there it is, see. There's the atmic permanent atom aligned with the, quite directly, with the monastic permanent atom. And by this time, the Antakarana is built. And let's just say it is functional. Of course, the Antakarana continues, so, when is the moment when it's really and truly completely built? It may seem to be absorbed into the monad at the 5th or the 6th degree, but then the whole entire way of higher evolution is a kind of Antakarana. Our journey is a kind of Antakarana toward stellar sources. So we're always going to be retracing our steps to the one. When it comes to permanent atoms or units or antikaranic phases most associated with this ninth petal, well, the mental unit, the antikarana, the monastic permanent atom. The mental unit is in full expression, especially as we are confirming the third degree. So it's going to be a time of very strong mental, spiritual brilliance. The monastic permanent atom is strongly linked to the mental unit via the functional antikarana. I think that's something we really have to take into consideration. The monastic permanent atom strongly linked to the mental unit via the functional antikarana. There are 3 spirillae in the monastic permanent atom and 4 in the mental unit, and together they make a kind of a 7-fold unit, just the way the astral and physical permanent atoms are 7-fold. They do have to come together. The other permanent atoms in the triad are only 3-fold and do not seem to have a connection with any lower 4 the way the monastic permanent atom does. So increasingly the intuitive buddhi is coming in. It already did at the 8th petal. And as we move towards the 3rd degree, obviously we're becoming increasingly intuitive. The 3rd degree is said to involve intuitive instinct. Spiritual instinct for the 1st degree, mental illumination and spiritual intelligence for the second degree, and intuitive instinct for the third degree. So we can see how appropriate, in a way, the intuitive sign Sagittarius is for this particular phase. The Antikarana, as we know it, does continue to the fifth degree, at which point the Sun symbolically absorbs Mercury. Mercury is always arranging for the extension of one source until it reaches another. But in a way, Mercury and the Sun are one, and Mercury is retracted into the Sun at the fifth degree. So the Buddhic part is present. If we continue to progress here, the point of focus becomes ever more Buddhic, and at the third degree, DK tells us that the power of the knowledge petals is fading out. We tend to use, in any deliberate way, knowledge less and less. It's just available to us as we need it, but our intuitive understanding directs how we will use the items of knowledge that are ours. So, do these petals actually begin to disintegrate at the third degree, the knowledge of the outer world, and perhaps begin to offer up their energies to a higher series of petals? So if the Buddhic part of the Antikarana was touched in the last petal we dealt with, petal number 8, then the Atmic part will be touched here, and that seems pretty obvious because of the connection between Atmic and the monastic permanent atom. The Atmic plane is a plane of intelligence. It's the third plane. So from one perspective, it yields the first ray being the head of Brahma, but from another perspective, the third ray, with the logoic plane operating in the first ray capacity and the monadic plane in the second, then the Atmic plane operates in the third ray capacity. So it has that third ray connection with the monastic permanent atom. But it's a higher form of intelligence. It's the intelligence of that which is in, understanding of that which is intended by the divine will. So perspective is increasing when we touch the monastic permanent atom and higher aspects of the triad, and we are now becoming impersonal. Not just supra-personal, not just trans-personal, but actually impersonal. And to be impersonal is to see the person as part of a much larger picture. So the person looks much smaller, and the big picture puts things in proportion. I keep on thinking about the proportion to be connected with the Atmic plane, which is ruled by Libra, the great sign of proportion. From that perspective, things are really seen far more as they are, in correct proportion, even more so than one can see on the two lower planes, that is the higher monastic and the Buddhic plane. So the height of impersonality in the triad is the Atmic level, and the Master has achieved this. Just a little reminder came out that in the new schools and the preparatory schools we will first study ourselves and make the necessary adjustments, and only then in the more advanced school we study ourselves in relation to the big picture, because the higher types of macrocosmic studies are offered in the advanced schools, and it doesn't mean that we forget about the person entirely or about the lower self. It's just it is seen in a much broader context. So all of this development of the Antikarana is very important here, and all of the three minds are uniting, if we consider those minds to be the abstract mind, the son of mind, and the mental unit. There's other ways to consider the three minds uniting, and they are also the universal mind, the abstract mind, and the concrete mind. The atmic plane is a strong reflector of the universal mind. So we have quite full mental expression here, and both Aries and Sagittarius are quite strong mental signs. Of course, we could even put the other fire sign Leo there, because the full glory, the transfigured glory of the egoic Lotus causal body is achieved here. Maybe not the fullest blaze, but the fullest blaze of 9 is achieved. A great fulfillment. Leo connected with the will to fulfillment, and Leo also related to Jupiter, which may, after all, if we remove the luminaries, Jupiter may be, in a sense, the ruler of Leo from the Orthodox perspective. So there is the glory of the 9 petals, that's for sure, and Jupiter brings to fulfillment, as does Leo. But generally I work with Aries and Sagittarius in connection with this petal. The hall, point number 8, in which we are entering, is certainly the hall of wisdom. In a way, the master is still involved with the hall of wisdom. But is there such a thing as the hall of life? I think as we move closer to the monad, which of course is a great source of love wisdom in itself, the whole idea of the hall of life could come into focus. I don't think anything is given about that, but at least the possibility of reading from the book of life is given. So we are now in this 9th petal through our strenuous and abnormal efforts, and then in confirmation by the rod of initiation, becoming the rich young man. We are a more mature member of the kingdom of God. We are not just the young man. I think a young man is a symbol for the initiate of the 2nd degree. We're the rich young man. We have accumulated so much of experience and knowledge. So we have many good spiritual qualities in our treasury, which is quite full. But then the question is asked, but do you go in at night and count your gold? Well, in other words, do you have the Midas approach? Are you really happy about all the knowledge you've accumulated and somehow pride yourself upon it and somehow become attached to it and refuse to relinquish it, forgetting that it is included in the higher faculties? So do you count your gold and store it up, or do you spend it on behalf of others in the most liberal manner? So, so many people in the world, they want to be rich, but what does it really mean? Once we are rich, how do we handle the riches? We've seen lives destroyed by riches, or let's just say not knowing how to handle the great power which riches confer. Okay, we go on to point number 9. There are different worlds, different dimensions in which we are focused. We obviously are rapidly moving beyond any deep concern with the personality, so the world of the senses, emotions, and mind are behind us, but we use them. And then we have the world of meaning, significance, being, and causes or purpose. So we're involved here with several things. I guess the world of meaning, for mostly because we are developing conscious soul consciousness, the ability to focus within the higher mind, By that I mean the levels on which the egoic lotus is found. But also, we are entering the world of significance, because that is the world of the spiritual triad, and the finger points towards the plan and purpose of God. And we see whither all things are tending. Not completely yet, of course. We don't have the plan completely in a first-hand manner. I think it takes the third degree to have that as the occultist, true occultist, would see it. And in my view, anyway, the true occultist is the initiate of the third degree. At least it begins there. And I suppose we are having as well, well, if we can focus in the spiritual triad, we are focusing in the world of significance, but we're not really yet focused in the spiritual triad. We are receiving impulses from it. So something of the significance of things pointing towards destination and destiny is coming home to us. And there are what we might call intimations of the world of being. The Tibetan is an initiate into the mysteries of being. We are not. But it's at this point that being begins to become a conscious reality. It's a very subtle thing because it's always present and always is. But we don't isolate it, you know. Isolated being is pretty much the same as isolated unity, and our first steps into isolated unity are really taken at this time, even though they are more fulfilled at the time of the fifth degree. So we are looking at the meaning of being as the triad begins to confer it from the monad. Atma is the great representative of the monad from the will angle, and in the monad being resides. The monad essentially is being. So we're learning not just what a thing appears to be, what it means, its relative, its, whoa, that's a horrible picture. Its relations. We're not just looking at the relations of one thing to another, we're looking at its essence, its archetypal purpose as revealed in the world of being. Of course, there's even more being found in the sea of fire when the monad is liberated from its second subplane vehicle, the second subplane of the cosmic physical plane. The world of becoming, well, we still are active there because we are serving, and we have to work out that which has been revealed to us of the divine plan. The plan emanates from the world of significance, and especially from the atmic plane of that world. And we are, the numerical alignment is there, all the threes are there, and we are receiving some information about what that divine plan really is. It's not the way a higher initiate sees it, but we're seeing it reasonably so. And we're driven to an increasing extent by the spiritual will of the atmic plane to manifest that plan in the world of becoming. With regard to the world of significance, I've said that in that world, that which exists from the perspective of that world is seen as contributing to the fulfillment of divine purpose. How does anything contribute to the fulfillment of divine purpose? So it is not just a question of how this relates to that, but how this contributes to the fulfillment of divine, divine purpose. So significance, in the world of significance, things are moving. They are moving towards the ideation of the Logos, which manifests itself as archetype in the world of being. We're all moving towards the fulfillment of the perfect relationship, which is expressed through the archetypes that have been created and are sustained in the mind of God. So the significance of anything has to do with how it contributes to the archetypalization process. Of course, we have to be in the world of meaning, really, before we can... We have to be somewhat functional in the world of meaning before the world of significance means anything, or there's the word meaning again, before it is understood, and certainly before divine purpose, those sustained standing waves in the mind of God, which are purpose, before they are understood. These are high things, and we are reaching towards them. We're not really there yet, but we are stretching into them. Let's see here about the Devic groups, quite a bit here. The Agni-Shvatas and the Agni-Suryans of a higher kind. Well, they are the ones that are concerning us in the work of this petal and in its unfoldment. The Agni-Shvatas, strongly so, because they are solar angels, and the communion with the solar angel is very strong now. We are increasingly soul identified, and the will of the soul, maybe working out from the atmic plane, but coming down through the synthesis petals and into the sacrifice petals. It's in our mind all the time, and we're trying to represent that will faithfully, which is another reason why Aries, the foremost sign of will, really can be considered prominent in this ninth petal. So we are realizing ourselves more and more as the soul in expression. But anyway, we're talking next about the Agni-Suryans of the Buddhic plane. Remember, there are higher and lower Agni-Suryans. They're not just the devas of the astral plane, which of course are being subdued and are coming more in alignment with the quality of the Agni-Suryans of the Buddhic plane. So we are developing Buddhi Manas here, not just the pure intuition, but Buddhi Manas, and the intuition knows the truth, and Manas formulates the thoughts to express that truth. With Kama Manas, we have been swayed in our thought by our feelings. But if something comes in as the true intuition, if it's true, it comes from the world of pure reason, and it is not involved with the feelings. It may, I suppose, stir up the aspiration at some point. Anyway, the intuition DK labors to tell us is not concerned with the personal self at all, and giving sort of a higher advice as to how you are to conduct your life. Maybe from the higher mental plane that sort of thing can come, a kind of soul guidance, but the intuition is not about that. It's about the larger picture, and about creating the perception of unity and the expression of the larger inclusive love. It's all about the plan and the big picture. We can relate psychism and intuition just as we can relate the astral body and the etheric body. If we develop the mind very well and learn to think abstractly, it will lead to the intuition, and it will certainly lead to a more intelligent expression of the intuition. So these higher Agni-Suryans, they are involved with the mediating of the intuition. Intuition, one way to describe it, it is the lightning of formless thoughts. It is the realm of ideas, formless beings who contain that which can be worked out in time and space. as an expression of their quality. Are we contacting yet the higher Agni Chaitans of the Atmic plane, the embodiers of the divine will? Well, there is a kind of reflection. I remember discussing with Robert Gerard, and he said, well, you know, at the first degree, you sort of have an apprehension of the third, at the second of the fourth, at the third of the fifth, kind of a leapfrogging that goes on there. There's some sort of resonance between the 1-3, the 2-4, the 3-5, which makes possible a dim apprehension at the lower stage of what the higher stage may be about. So the types of devas involved here, where we're really trying to work with the Agnishvatas and to become more and more the solar angel, to rise to the feet of the solar angel. And we're getting ready, as the third degree is taken, to break into the world where the higher Agni Suryans mean something specific to us. Ever a more synthetic approach is followed as we are moving towards the completion of the 9 petals of the Egoic Lotus. We might say of the Egoic Lotus that the 9, the whole thing in a way concerns the second aspect, the whole Egoic Lotus, but from a perspective where we leave out the atomic triangle, the 9 petals concern the third aspect, the 3 innermost petals concern the second aspect, those are the synthesis petals, and the jewel in the lotus concerns the first aspect. There are just all these different perspectives, and when in the question of truth, you have to ask yourself, from what perspective are you viewing the scene? There's different ways to count, different ways to fuse apparently separate items, to fuse and merge. So the whole question of enumeration comes in here. How do we enumerate those items which are found in our field of consciousness? According to the way we enumerate will be the meaning of what we see. Right now, as St. Paul said, we see through a glass darkly, and you can imagine what the glass was like in those days. But now we have more sophisticated means to achieve transparency, and always it must be so that the methods of merging with reality are enhanced in quality as we move through the centuries and as hierarchy comes closer. Okay, let us move on now. Point number 11. The astrological cross most associated with this petal. Well, I think we're dealing with the fixed cross on the path of initiation, and really moving towards the climax of this petal. After all, climax of this cross at the third degree. Of course, we're not experiencing in the 8th petal the fullness, but we're moving towards it rapidly in the 9th petal, and by the time the 9th petal is completely unfolded, we have what's called the climax of the fixed cross, and the man climbs down from that cross and does not yet mount the cardinal cross, but in fact waits to do that until after the 4th initiation. So in this petal, the candidate for initiation is still on the fixed cross, and this means that really there is a very intense type of experience involving what we have called blinding light, because after all the third initiation is coming. Fiery pain as the purification process proceeds and the impurities are eliminated so that there can be a very free flow of soul energy and also spirit energy beginning through the chakra system. Also, we have the bitter woe, but in a way we've gone somewhere beyond that, and a triumph is occurring, and the first aspects of liberation are truly showing, because the third degree is a degree of liberation. The third degree shows us it's very Uranian in the respect that the rod of initiation is considered to be the flaming diamond, and it's considered to be Uranian. The initiator is Uranian in the third degree. So the fourth initiation is transitional. Exactly when do we dismount the fixed cross? After the third degree, we're said to be dismounting from it. In a way, though, we're still on it during much of the process of synthesis, and something of the anticipation of the cardinal cross is coming in, but we're not mounting that cross yet. At the fourth degree, we have to, in a way, generate our own cross through our karma and dharma. They create a cross together. So we're more on our own in that respect. And can we stand on our own 2 feet evolutionarily? So the darkness descends upon us, and we are increasingly abandoned by the solar angel, who asks us then to demonstrate what we have learned. So we are approaching the fourth degree, following petal number 9 in a clear-eyed manner, and yet the dark night of the soul, a greater dark night than is experienced at the second degree, also comes into focus. We're no longer deluded by time and space following the third degree, and we are working on dispelling the illusion of time and space while we're working in the 9th petal. The fixed cross still deals with time and space, but the cardinal cross does not. So we're entering the realm, as the Buddhic plane becomes stronger and stronger, we're entering the realm of the eternal now, and it is said, lead me from the unreal to the real, and this is occurring increasingly, and from death to immortality. Once we've experienced the third degree, the immortal aspect within our nature is very present, and we identify as that immortal aspect. So, in sum, we're still on the fixed cross as we're working in the 9th petal, but once the 9th petal is opened, and we're working in the synthesis petals and towards the 4th degree, we are overcoming time and space, overcoming illusion, and in that respect, no longer on the fixed cross, the soul, let's just say consciousness encapsulated within the egoic lotus, is no longer the objective. We're reaching towards something higher, and there is a climaxing occurring of all that has been prepared in the millions of years of work. We're actually working to receive the spiritual triad, and the synthesis petals are connected with the spiritual triad. They are Buddhically inspired and monastically mediated. And because they are connected with the spiritual triad, our work in receiving the energies of the spiritual triad is what helps them unfold. So we've moved from the monastic focus into the Buddhic focus, and there'll be a time after that when the Atmic focus, the jewel in the lotus, is the major factor for us. Maybe a very brief time, but following the destruction of the causal body, of course, the spiritual will of the Atmic plane is much more powerful because there is no egoic lotus causal body to intercept it. Excuse me. Meanwhile, I might say that for all of us, really climaxing our experience on the fixed cross is paramount. And we do have to learn how to deal with those four factors and the type of liberation that will come at the third degree. It's not complete liberation, of course. There are increasingly liberations along the way. But learning how to blend together Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius is very much our task at this time. And, you know, I don't know anybody, at least anybody that I know in my immediate personal acquaintances, who are dismounting from that fixed cross, nor have they mastered time and space, nor are they living in the eternal now, and all those things which we can expect when the fixed cross is mastered, and when we are actually entering that very unusual stage leading to the fourth initiation. With the factor of synthesis setting in, the illusions of time and space are rapidly disappearing. Okay, this is point number 12. The stage of the path most associated with the opening of this petal, well, we have, you know, evolution, ambition, the advanced man, aspiration, probationary, discipleship, accepted discipleship, pledged discipleship, accepted discipleship, initiation. Well, we are the probationary initiate already, because we've taken the first 2 degrees. Now, you know, we can be working in the 9th petal, organizing and correlating and vitalizing, and still not quite have taken the 2nd degree, because it's not like we work on one petal, finish it completely, and then go to the next. We've talked about this principle of overlap, and probably as we examine our life, we will see that we have several levels at which we are working. There is an advanced level that we have not quite achieved. The tasks remain undone. There's a level at which we are customarily working, and we have achieved a great deal, and then there's the level past where we have definitely achieved what has to be achieved. And I think every student should discriminate what is his or her, cutting edge, and what is the habitual plateau level, where one has customarily been working and feels fairly adept at that kind of work, and what then is in the past then is second nature and no longer has to be worked at, but which is fed and somehow stimulated by the work we are doing on ahead. In the Egoic Lotus, work done on ahead definitely adds power and unfoldment to the work we've already accomplished. Remember, always there's a plus that is added to work that we have already done, and it is augmented by assistive powers like the solar angel and the initiator. So it's definitely a gift we are receiving from them. Can we say that we've earned every bit of it? Not really. The gift which supplements the work we have achieved is given more out of grace. It's a great benevolence, which is simply bestowed, and we're going to come into the position where we too later can bestow that type of assistance on those who have done a certain amount of work, and that work will need our supplementation. So we are called the initiate when the unfoldment of the ninth petal really occurs, not only through our strenuous and abnormal labors, but through the application of the flaming diamond, the rod of power of the great Lord of the world. We have passed through the stage of probationary initiation. We can be working in this ninth petal as a probationary initiate, but then there comes that climaxing moment when our status changes to the true initiate, as that initiate is conceived to be in hierarchy. We remember that hierarchy doesn't consider anyone a true initiate unless they have taken the third degree, which is really the first of the great initiations from their perspective. I mean, initiation 1 and 2 can be called part of major initiations because there are still more minor initiations before that. But the true initiation, we know, is initiation 3, and so often when DK talks about the initiate, we have to determine who is he talking about, the probationary initiate, or is he talking about the true initiate as hierarchy conceives that initiate to be. What about the stage of discipleship, if any, most associated with this petal? Well, you know, sometimes we have this term called initiate disciple. And even though one might be an initiate, he's still a disciple, and so we can be the probationary initiate disciple, or eventually, with the unfolding of the ninth petal, the initiate disciple. Technically speaking, all the way up until the third initiation occurs, we can be called an accepted disciple. But really, that stage of discipleship is said to end at the stage of true initiation, the third degree. I think Roberto Assagioli was considered a third degree initiate, and DK called him an initiate disciple. Well, everyone is a disciple, you know. We're all learning, we're all disciplining, we're all attempting to take that next degree. So it's interesting how these terms have kind of a broad utility. We are all aspirants, we are all disciples, and we're not all initiates, but even individualization was an initiation of the kind. We're not talking about the great monastic initiations. Every time we enter some new field of experience and are released into that field to gather further experience and to express our powers, we are, in a general sense, initiated. We're initiated into something new. The first ray type of will is the will to initiate, and excuse me, it has a lot to do with the sign of Aries, which is the great initiator. One day will be the truly great initiator, not just the sign Capricorn, but then Earth will have to be a sacred planet for that to occur. We, at this point, as we're approaching the third degree, we're probably entering our training, which necessitates the Antakarana for the stage of Chela on the thread, and we can be directly in contact with the Master. Not much of his energy has to be expended to assist us, as long as we are really working on behalf of the plan and consciously on behalf of the ashram. And once we have passed that third degree, the stage of Chela in the aura applies, and we have become more central to the Master's ashram, and we have begun to move from the periphery into a closer relation with the master. So DK's students, as registered in the Dina books, were chelas on the periphery. They were members of his ashram but had not penetrated very far. So, we, under all circumstances, want to be realistic about our progress, and we want to avoid any type of wishful thinking or inflation. I mean, it's usually the realization of the types of sacrifices that are required that encourage the student to be realistic about his stage of development. It's sacrifice, really, that separates the sheep from the goats. So we have to ask ourselves, really, what are we willing to give up in terms of attachment to lesser things so that greater things can be expressed through us, or so that we can clear the path for greater things to be expressed in general. So when we're working between the third and fourth degree, the idea of chela within the aura applies. And we no longer need to be on the thread because we can call for an interview. We would never do that except under great need and duress, something we couldn't necessarily solve ourselves. It's a more intimate relation, but first we must become the true initiate. So what is the initiatory stage, if any, most associated with this petal? Well, it's certainly the approach to and taking of the third initiation. This is Transfiguration. It's the first solar initiation, and I think we should remember in this sense that the sun is exalted in Aries. It's a very high expression in Aries, and Transfiguration is the first really solar initiation. So the power, not so good there, power of the sun is very important at this first solar initiation. So it's the third degree, and it means that we are entering with a concerted focus upon the cosmic etheric planes. Of course, a lot of focus still on the highest level of the mental plane, which is the lowest level of the spiritual triad, and we can certainly dwell within the growing power and radiance of the egoic Lotus, but in terms of reaching forward, it's into the cosmic ethers, and in terms of a habitual place of focus for consciousness, it's right within the causal body. So three areas there, the higher mind, which will focus us on the second subplane of the higher mental plane, where we will have strong group consciousness. We'll be able to focus also, because of the antikarana, two ways really of building that, one from the causal body itself to the monastic permanent atom, and the other from the mental unit to the monastic permanent atom. But the point is we can focus within the monastic permanent atom and begin to think somewhat as God thinks. So that is through the abstract mind, God the planetary logos. And our real cutting edge is going to be in the higher aspects of the spiritual triad, the Atma and Buddhi, which in a way represent what the monad is. So those three areas, and I apologize for the occasional, due to thunder, occasional white noise sound, if you are hearing that. What color are we dealing with in the 5 color stages most associated with this petal? Well, in a way we're still in the cave, but the light is getting brighter. It's a more spacious cave. The cross is not yet overturned. The rosy cross, the cross of utter sacrifice, which represents our fourth initiation, no, not yet completely overturned, but the cross is well in sight, and we know all about the fixed cross, which we have, well, just about fulfilled, or have fulfilled when the third degree is taken. So we understand something about what it will mean to overturn the rosy cross and go out into the full light of day. We are knowing more and more what we have to sacrifice, what we have to do, what we have to relinquish, and how we have to collapse the extension of the causal body, as it were, and reduce that down to the point which can pass through the needle's eye, divested of all things which would hold us not only to the realms of earth, but even to the realm of the higher mind. We begin to know what we have to do. It may be a very daunting type of sacrifice as we begin to think about it. And that's where the rich young man finds himself. It may not have been Christ through Jesus who talks to all of us, but something of the Christ nature will talk to us and say, sell everything you have, give the money to the poor, and follow me. And that is going to be the collapse of time and space, and the collapse of all of our attachment, not only to the lower 18 subplanes, but even to the lower 21 subplanes. So shrinking time and space, passing through the needle's eye, and we are preparing to no longer work with the soul per se, but our eyes are upon the triadal work and the work with spirit, and the soul, as grand as it is, the egoic lotus, and the consciousness within the egoic lotus is seen as a limiting state. This is an interesting idea, that the power of the monad, increasingly contacted now after the third degree, is compressing us and burning away all the dross, compressing us so that we can fit through the needle's eye. The kind of idea of threading the needle's eye, the Antikarana still passing through the needle's eye, and that being a thread, can be brought to bear here. Time and space, and the whole idea of extension in space and time will not fit through the needle's eye. Only the here and now and the eternal now. Here in the eternal now will fit through the eye of the needle. So the monadic consciousness and identification as the monad is depriving us of the sense of time and space in which we have been immersed for millions of years. So our spirit, our monadic aspect, is demonstrating to us that time and space are illusion. So the monad, I like the way this is put. Sometimes I write things and then, forget them, and then only remember later, or am reminded. The monad wipes out sequence and extension. I have in my series on identification, I have some programs on simultaneity and sequence. So the monad, which is pure being and immutable, always the same in its essence, wipes out the sense of sequence and the sense of extension in our perceptual mechanism, which gives us our customary sense of space. You kind of wonder about all those universes, innumerable universes, which Blavatsky has told us have already occurred forever. What do we do with that sequence when sequence is annihilated? Maybe they have occurred, but from a higher perspective, maybe they have never occurred at all. So we get into this interesting idea of the non-arising of the universe. Then you kind of wonder what happens to the second aspect of secret doctrine, second fundamental, because periodicity no longer occurs. It occurs in the relative world, but in the realization of beingness, it does not. So on the way to the cardinal cross, we are translated into the higher triad. Remember, the words are transmutation, transformation, transfiguration, and finally, when it has to do with the movement of consciousness into the higher triad, it's translation. We are on the way to liberation, but we are not yet complete and willing servants of the divine will. Well, the Christ certainly became that. And we cannot hope at this time to duplicate his experience in the Garden of Gethsemane. We can not even duplicate the experience of the becoming fourth degree initiate who says, "Not my will, Father, but thine be done," on a lower turn of the spiral than the Christ faced when in the garden. So we are having now the freedom to be bound. We are allowing ourselves to be crucified for the sake of redemption. We have great internal freedom, but we choose to be bound to the redemptive cross. When Christ arises, he goes, it's kind of an earlier resurrection, he goes forth and he harrows hell. He brings out of hell all of those who are worthy. He ministers to those in prison, and that's what we do as well by free choice. There are 3 days for the harrowing of hell. You kind of wonder whether this also has to do with the sun apparently standing still at the solstices. So, but there's an added sense of lightness from the higher realms as we descend into hell, and hell is time and space, and the lower planes. Also this sense of going deeper into matter, but we are sustained by our own realized immortality. So this is a peculiar stage with respect to the cross. We're not really on the cardinal cross yet, but once liberated at the fourth degree, we are free to harrow hell and become a true savior according to our level. We have detached from humanity, and all of the magnetism which necessitates our reappearance in human form is over, and yet we descend in order to bring the form of salvation that we can bring, given our new liberated status and still the limitations of our consciousness. So that's really the big test of the third degree. Do I have the courage, the selflessness to mount the cross of crucifixion, to overcome the rosy cross in the blue oval? Can I take internally the vow of poverty, no matter how much money I may have? An attitude that my resources, whatever they are, my accumulated resources after so many years of, many millions of years of development, are strictly for the benefit of the world and not for the benefit of the lower man whatsoever, not for the benefit of the ahamkara. The ahamkara has to be deflated, so my identification is no longer as any sort of enlarged, exalted ego on the higher mental plane. It's utterly deflated, it's utterly collapsed. I am identified as something else. But if I am detached, I may still have what I had before. It's under my control, but I use it in a different way. And of course, one has to be first the rich young man in that language, that allegorical language, before one can make such a decision. You can't give up what you don't have. Let's look now at number 16 from the point of view of the root races, what is the racial stage most associated with this petal? And I would say that the third degree, ruled by the fifth ray, is really the fulfillment of the objective of the fifth the fifth root race. So it's climactic Aryan. It's the latest Aryan. We could even say that in a way it climaxes with the master, but I'd like to think that the sixth root race can climax with the height of intuition, which is the fourth degree, and maybe the seventh root race with mastership. Of course, there are so many people that in the Aryan race that are nowhere near this point. We've discussed the idea that not even the first tier of petals is unfolded for the great majority, and we're really, you kind of wonder whether people are really in the Aryan race until they've done significant work in that third petal. Anyway, because the intuition is coming, we have the sense of the impending sixth root race process here. Is the master the height of Aryanism? Initiation number 5, it correlates with the fifth root race. Is the Chohan the height of that which can be achieved in the sixth root race? Is the Chohan of the seventh degree the height of that which can be achieved in the seventh root race? We have the idea of those who are following different rounds. Maybe it is in the fifth round that more of these great achievements will occur, and in the fifth round more masters will be produced, in the sixth round more Chohans, and in the seventh round, if we get that far on this earth, Venus never did, more Chohans of the seventh degree. But there are anticipations of this in the sub-races that are correlated with these rounds. And maybe, in future rounds, a number of different sub-races will occur, and the one which is most characteristic of the round will produce the type of emergence we're talking about, So maybe, here we are in the we're in the fifth root race of the fourth round, and we are producing an anticipation of what will happen more in the fifth round. We're producing the master, who is still, after all, a human being. So that's one way to look at it. And in the sixth root race, we will be producing some Chohans, a greater number of which will be produced in the sixth round. And in the seventh root race, we will be producing more Chohans of the seventh degree, as might be found in the seventh round. Most people in this round are fourth rounders, but some are already fifth rounders, like Plato and the masters, and some are sixth rounders, the Chohans, and some maybe are seventh rounders, the higher Chohans. In other words, some have achieved, even in this fourth root race, what it's going to take future rounds to achieve. In any case, we're meeting kind of the fulfillment of the Aryan stage, and even relatively shortly, many initiates of the fifth degree will be required. The numerical resonance tells us this, and also a direct quote from DK. We can say that the fourth degree is already hinting at the intuitional stage. 5 and 3 go together, 6 and 4 go together, maybe 7 and 5 go together. What exactly the plans are and how many will be produced, how many initiates of high degree will be produced in various cycles. Probably this is hidden in the divine plan and in the divine purpose. We might say that the sixth initiation is the climax of the sixth root race, but also of the sixth round. The fifth initiation, the climax of the fifth root race, but also more generally of the fifth round. A master is, after all, a five-pointed star, and interestingly, you know it to be true, a master is a human being, but a Chohan is not. They are no longer men, as are the masters, but having passed beyond that lesser state, have linked themselves to the great council in the highest secret place. They've linked themselves to Shambhala, the Chohans have, and the masters have not, in general, done so. So, as part of the offering of this fifth root race, which may not last so much longer, a number of initiates of the fifth degree masters will be made. The sixth root race is Buddhic, and just as the Transfigured initiate is one of the higher offerings of the fifth root race, so the Arhat will be one of the higher offerings of the sixth root race. The Arhat is Buddhic, has a released Buddhic faculty. The seventh root race from this perspective is Atmic, and the master is Atmic, and maybe we can anticipate quite a number of masters emerging in the seventh root race of this particular round. So a rounder, well, Plato, Confucius, and so forth, fifth rounders, the Christ, the Chohans, sixth rounders, but then you can change your round quite fast when you achieve these initiations. It just simply means that one achieves now what the majority, or many, will achieve in the round that lies ahead. So a fifth rounder means a master, and a sixth rounder means a Chohan. We don't talk much of the seventh rounder. At the seventh initiation, we're related to the Sun and Gemini in love wisdom. And we become a member, I would say, of the kingdom of solar lives. So we find the divine flames on the logoic plane. They are a very high hierarchy, and they are related to the sea of fire. Chohans of the sixth degree are six-pointed stars. Maybe Chohans of the seventh degree are seven-pointed stars. Chohans of the masters of the fifth degree are five-pointed stars. But anyway, we reach the third initiation, and it's the first solar initiation, and we become then a disciple on Sirius, not yet or in relation to Sirius, not yet a first degree entered apprentice on Sirius. You have to be a master for that. So let's just say a very high degree of Arianism in terms of consciousness is achieved with the opening of the ninth petal. And as we move on into the fourth degree and the fifth degree, we are joining what later rounds will produce in greater abundance. Perhaps it will be the case that in this particular fourth round, eventually quite a few fourth degree initiates will be produced. Maybe it correlates with the round to some extent. But if we're working ahead already into the fifth, sixth, seventh degrees, we are beyond what this particular round will normally produce. Yes, the root races ahead will produce a greater number of those advanced initiates than our particular fifth root race, but still the majority of the production that will occur of those advanced initiates will occur in subsequent rounds. We really don't know the way the plan has all of this numbered out. But we do know that certain proportions are planned, certain numbers are planned. An individual may break out of expectation and forge ahead farther than the general plan. But there is a general plan, just as we are told of the lotuses of passion and desire, that 2/5 came from the moon chain and will be on the path before the end of the 6th root race, but 3/5 will not be on the path until the next round, and that's already planned out. Is one necessarily captivated by that? No, because progress can be made which is uncharacteristic. So we began lower level Aryan mentalized consciousness in the 3rd petal, and we're reaching a kind of climax in the 9th petal, while not forgetting the numerical correspondences between the 5th degree and the 5th root race and the Aryan race. We're not forgetting that correspondence, realizing that in a way the Master is something of a climax of the Aryan process. Beyond that achievement of mastership, we can't really call it Aryan at all. It has to be correlated with the number 6. We don't really have a name yet for the 6th root race. I would say that any disciple or probationary initiate is working in the higher realms of the possibilities of the Aryan race. But it really spans over a very broad span of consciousness, all the way from the one who is working with detachment in the concrete mind, not necessarily influenced so much by emotion, but can think in a detached manner, and is less and less influenced by Kama Manas, which is still a kind of a transitional stage into Aryanism, all the way to the one who is blending with the members of the 5th creative hierarchy, the solar angels, and that is an initiate of the 3rd degree. So this 9th petal represents a high stage of the Aryan process, but not necessarily the highest. What type of egoic lotus are we dealing with here? Well, we've been through the lotuses of radiant lotuses, the lotuses with perfume, and now we're focusing on the lotuses of revelation. The fully blown 9-petaled egoic lotus is a lotus of revelation, and that status continues until the destruction of the egoic lotus. Here is something to be read. When the 3rd initiation is taken, the initiate becomes aware not only of the significance of the command to know, and of the innate ability to express the will nature of the monad. I guess that can even happen in the 2nd degree phase, in carrying out the purpose of Shambhala, but that through his fused personality soul, that's what we have at the 3rd degree, he is now in a position to make revelation to the hierarchy that he is en rapport with the monadic source from which he originally came. He can now obey the command to reveal, because the transfiguration is consummated. He is not now revealing the soul only, but all the 3 aspects now meet in him, and he can reveal the life aspect as will. So life and will are different, but they are intimately related, and not only the soul aspect as love, or the matter aspect as intelligence. This is a very important statement. Earlier I had said, well, I wonder what the 2nd degree initiate really is revealing. Well, how much of the monad he can reveal. At least he can express the will nature of the monad, because Vulcan is so powerful there, increasingly at the 2nd degree. But the life aspect of the monad begins to be capable of revelation at the 3rd degree. Well, I've already talked about the way in which no express reveal can be related to the third, fourth, and fifth initiations, and not just the first, second, and third. So again, we're leapfrogging a little bit. We are always dealing with the relation of 1 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 5, 4 to 6, 5 to 7. It is the subject, I'm going on here from rays and initiations, an important area. It is the subject of revelation and the task of the initiate to reveal, with which I am concerned. The disciple who represents the ashram must reveal to humanity the essential unity underlying creation. And we would say, well, is this strictly monadic, or is it also of the soul? Because the soul appreciates unity. So we certainly must at least reveal the unity, which is understood within soul consciousness. Can we also reveal the oneness? That's the question. So we're dealing with the process of revelation. This is Lotuses of revelation come in here at the 9th petal, and once it is fully unfolded, a great revelation can be made, and increasingly so beyond the 3rd degree and as the 4th degree is approached. So this he does first of all by acting like a clear sheet of glass through which all may see the reality of oneness as it demonstrates in practicing operation. These are such well-chosen words by the Tibetan. When he has, through his own life and words, notice words too, right? How important the words are, demonstrated his conscious participation in the basic unity, he passes on to practice ashramic methods of making this fundamental truth still more apparent. And it is necessary somehow to make this fundamental truth apparent to human beings who can possibly appreciate it. You can see here why, as a hierarchical technique, we brought to the attention of the general public the fact of the existence of the new group of world servers. Apparently they are making the underlying unity visible in their practice and in their words. They offer a practical expression of an existent unity based upon oneness of motive, of recognition, of orientation towards the spiritual world and towards the service of humanity. So oneness of motive, of recognition, of orientation, of methods and of ideas, and all this in spite of the fact that the physical plane relationship is usually non-existent and outer organization and recognition lack, which may be, of course, a great protection because it cannot be attacked in by physical methods. The unity is subjective and for that reason is impervious to every taint of separateness. The physical brain working in the lower realms is subject to the perception of separation. When the 3rd initiation is taken, the initiate becomes aware not only of the significance of the command to know and of his innate ability, I've read this before but it's so good, innate ability to express the will nature of the monad in carrying out the purpose of Shambhala. Seems rather high for the 2nd degree, but I guess some reflection of it is coming through for 2nd degree types. But that through his fused personality soul, and we're really talking about soul personality fusion here at the 3rd degree to a very great extent, maybe not the fullest extent, but a significant extent that we can say we really have the soul-infused personality here, at least in 3 out of 4 levels. But that through his fused personality soul, he is now in a position to make revelation to the hierarchy that he is en rapport with the monadic source from which he originally came. So, let those who claim the third degree or hint at it or are convinced they have taken it, let them see again the demand. The demand not only of this ability to sacrifice all forever, but the demand to truly be en rapport with the monadic source and to reveal it with greater skill so that people can begin to respond to it and recognize the same within themselves. He can now obey the command to reveal because the transfiguration is consummated. There was a great blazing revelation before the three disciples at the transfiguration, which I guess we have to say that Christ reenacted. The Master Jesus, well, the Initiate Jesus is at that time was a transfigured initiate, but I do believe the type of light displayed was that of one who had passed through the higher transfiguration. In chapter 10 of the Rays and Initiation, initiation's normal applications of these words, like transfiguration, are found, but also higher expressions. There are higher transfigurations. Even the seventh degree is a kind of Syrian transfiguration. Christ had not yet experienced that, but he certainly had experienced the kind of transfiguration which mastership actually is. We can always interpret in ever higher patterns, and we cannot be limited by thinking that a particular word applies to one level only. Everything depends upon the context in which we choose to work. So we can now obey the command to reveal because the transfiguration is consummated. He is not now revealing the soul only, although that is a considerable revelation. But all the three aspects now meet in him, including the Father aspect, and he can reveal the life aspect as will. Now, it's so important because there's life as will, there's life as love, there's life as intelligence. Life is indefinable. It's pure being. Will is not pure being, but it is the closest instrument to pure being. So he can reveal the life as will, and not only the soul aspect as love, or the matter aspect as intelligence. And really, love and matter are life, of course, according to Blavatsky. We have to get used to a certain fluidity of terms. So we are lotuses of revelation at this point, when we're simply working in the ninth petal and organizing, coordinating, and vitalizing. We're not yet the full lotus of revelation, but by the time we've taken the transfiguration, we certainly are. The monadic stage here of unfoldment. Well, I had understood that Alice Bailey was preparing a degree called Sons of the Sun. It was for those approaching the third degree. I think she did not succeed in making that available. But anyway, the Sons of the Sun, one of the monadic groupings is called Sons of the Sun. But if we're looking at page 1081, where the monadic stages are revealed, not necessarily the monadic sources, we have something called rotating units of the seventh order. I think it'll be a little hard to fathom. But anyway, we have here, I think, the beginning of we can question ourselves, is counter-rotation going on. Now, normally we would think that it is the synthesis petals which are going to rotate when they are reasonably unfolded in a different direction than all the other 9. But something to be wondered at is the way the egoic lotus is drawn. Indicating a kind of counterclockwise rotation for petals 7, 8, and 9. I'm not sure that's really true, you see, but it's indicated at least. If we stick to the idea that the lowest of any tier must touch the 3rd level, the middle tier must touch the 2nd. It's not exact, and the middle petal must touch the 2nd level, and the 3rd petal must touch the highest level. So it looks like kind of a counterclockwise rotation here. Now we're given the name rotating units of the 7th order. Certainly the rotation has begun, and whether the rotation is all in one direction, there is going to be a rotation. And a higher type of rotation will occur with the synthesizing petals, and they will, just the way the axis of the Earth rotates in a different direction than does the rotation of the Earth itself, the diurnal rotation, the daily rotation, and rotates in a different direction, or gyrates, maybe I should say, in a different direction than does the revolution of the Earth around the Sun. So we're going to have an analogy here of a rotation going on and a counter-rotation going on in the synthesis petals. The 7th order. Why the 7th order? Well, is he in touch with Atma as the 7th principle? Are we talking here about the rotation only of the 3rd tier? Or are we talking about rotation of the causal body itself, which also exists in differential rates? I think, though, we have to stick to the lotus petals. But we can ask, are there several orders of rotation within the causal body? And is somehow the rotation of the sacrifice tier of the 7th order? Causal body rotates, mental body rotates, astral body rotates, etheric body maybe rotates in some manner. All of those aspects of the aura rotate. The outer tier petals rotates, the middle tier rotates, the inner tier of sacrifice petals will rotate. I guess if we count that way, we reach the number 7. With etheric as 1, astral 2, mental as 3, causal body as a whole 4, and then the aspects of the egoic lotus 5, 6, 7. Now, the 7th order, well, we're told that 7th heaven and the 3rd are very related. We're told here in Dyna 2 that St. Paul had reached such a point when he referred to the 3rd heaven as it veiled the 7th, which was the original wording deleted by the recipients of this message at that time as utterly meaningless. So the 7th heaven has to be the logoic plane, and in some way these achievements in the 9th petal and the 3rd initiation deal with the 3rd heaven. So that idea of 7th order may have something to do with the effect of the 7th heaven upon the 3rd heaven. And in the 3rd heaven we do find all of the petals of the 9 petals of the egoic lotus. And further, even the 12 petals are found in the third heaven. So the relationship between the seventh and third heaven, I think, can come in here. Relationship between Atma and mind can come in here. We're dealing with the harmony of the spheres. We can consider it to be internal as well as external, and harmonization, a chord is being produced. Every causal body or egoic lotus will produce some sort of chord, and it will be more and more harmonious. I don't know yet enough about music to anticipate what it would be, but DK does tell us about the, if we started at the Do, Do, Mi, Sol, Do. So that's a ba 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 bum ba 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 bum. That's a fourfold chord, and the full chord of the monad is involved in that. Well, we're not there yet. We are just on Do, Mi, Sol. That's as far as we've gotten, because that is going to be the soul-infused personality, really producing a harmonious chord. But a good musical chord will emerge here somehow, and we as an individual will be in tune with purpose. We're not, all of us, yet in tune, and the chord we are sounding in our causal and personal nature is certainly not yet beautiful at all times. Interesting how the fourth ray souls who have this ability in the arts, music, painting, dance, rhythm, destroy the causal body through harmony. As more fourth ray souls come into expression, we're going to understand more about that process. Even the fourth ray healing methods through sound will be some of the first which the fourth kingdom in nature, the human kingdom, will adopt. So it's an obscure reference, but you know, when you look at these 13 names of the monad, they seem to fit pretty well with stages of egoic unfoldment. So even though some of the names are hard to interpret, I'm inclined to want to read them in terms of petal unfoldment, as some of them really make sense. You know, the whole idea of equilibrization before destruction makes a lot of sense. The equilibrized atom is ready for destruction. Number 6, the tertiary points of secondary fire, makes a lot of sense. Even the fact that 3 times 2 is 6, pointing to what can be achieved at the 6th petal. Points of fiery excellence, it seems very related to Leo. And when units of primary radiation, we do talk about the primary lotuses that have the third petal quite unfolded, in advance, really, of the majority of human beings that are earth chain human beings. Units of inertia fit so well with those who are very tamasic in the earliest stages of human evolution. So some of them fit extraordinarily well. We haven't gotten into it yet, we will, but the electric sparks, you know, it fits with Aquarius so well. And units of negative resistance related to Pisces, I think very much so. Probably the 12th petal. There are just certain words which connect us to certain numbers and certain petals. I think we do have here a list of how the unfolding monad demonstrates its unfoldment through the egoic lotus. Okay. Well, you can understand how each one of these subjects could open up a great exploration. What group of souls is most associated with this petal? Well, human group number 9. They live in the eternal and they know the self is one. They're living in divine cyclic time. They realize there's no my soul or thy soul. What I'm going to do is simply turn to that It is from Esoteric Psychology 2, and I imagine it's going to be around page 205, a little later. It's going to be human group number 9. Those souls who are initiate into the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Well, some of human group number 8 is involved here because they're really treading the path of later discipleship, and they are occultists of modern times, but they are reaching towards this human group number 9, and they do achieve it in relation to petal number 9. The souls who are initiate into the mysteries of the kingdom of God, these are souls who are not only conscious of their vehicles of expression, the integrated personality, and conscious also of themselves as souls, but they know past all controversy that there is no such thing as my soul and your soul, but simply the soul. They know this not only as a mental proposition and a sensed reality, but also as a fact in their own consciousness. And, any true initiate of the third degree knows this. So you ask yourself, do I know this? Really? This is EP2 and page 207. The souls who are initiate into the mysteries of the kingdom of God. That's the high stage of discipleship, almost initiation, and then they know this. So this is one of those prime requirements, the utter sacrifice of all forever, and this type of ability to reveal the monad, let's just say, let's collect a few of those things, utter sacrifice, reveal the monad, and know that there is only the soul and not my soul and thy soul. Those are 3 strong requirements for the third degree. So we live in the eternal. The eternal now is making its way into us, and especially with the Buddhic understanding, and we know the self as one. Sometimes I think it's easier to know the self as one than to annihilate sequence and live in the eternal. What stage of adaptation is most associated with this petal? Stage 7 at last, full, a knower of the plan, in the world of souls, even though this already started with the new group of world servers in petal number 8. So the new group of world servers has a large span, and the third degree initiates, of course, can be included, and so can, at the heart of it, the fourth degree initiates, knowing the plan more as the ashram knows it more directly. So this time I'll go to Psych 1 and go to about page 325. And here we are. Here we have a complete, unselfish adaptation to the group need and purpose. Those who have reached this point in their evolution are decentralized as regards their own personality life. The focus of their mental attention is in the soul and in the world of souls. That makes sense with the third degree initiate, right? Their attention is not directed towards the personality at all, except insofar as is needed to force it to adhere to group or soul purpose. Well, that reminds one a bit of petal number 7, where that forcing process and controlling process really got going. These servers who are expressions of soul radiance and attractive power, are knowers of the plan, real knowers. And in every organization they constitute the new and slowly growing group of world servers. In their hands lies the salvation of the world. Well, this number 7 seems to span the new group of world servers who are at least second degree initiates. but second degree initiates. But from another point of view, it goes on to include the third degree initiates. So we're on page EP1, 327. We can see what a high state it is. Knowers of the plan, living in the world of souls, not attending to the personality except to make it a fit instrument. It already is quite a fit instrument, but not really being interested in personality life. Where really are our interests? And soul radiance is blazing through in this petal, and remember the sun and its exaltation in Aries, the radiance of the soul shining through in a blaze of glory. We're told about that when all 9 petals are unfolded. There's great attractive power. And the attractive power comes in. They have the perfume to be attractive. And they are not just expressors of the plan, they are knowers of the plan. A second degree initiate can express the plan. It takes a real third degree initiate to know the plan. So within the new group of world servers can be some very high souls. That doesn't mean the rank and file are of the servers are high souls in that way, but some in the servers can be third and fourth degree. All right. Well, you can see we're becoming knowers, and that's why the word know applies so well to the third degree if we wish to lift the sequence to the point where true initiation begins from the perspective of the hierarchy. What about the chakras here? What chakras are most implicated? Well, we're moving in on the third degree. It's the Ajna center. The fifth ray and the Ajna center. Well, we can say, well, is it strictly Venus at the Ajna center? Because Venus has a powerful fifth ray in its soul, but Mercury has ultimately an even more powerful fifth ray. Excuse me, especially from its monadic level. At least that's how I conceive it to be at the moment, till I'm enlightened as to my ignorance. We can always hope to be disillusioned along the way. So the Ajna center rules this third initiation. The Ajna is connecting with the monastic permanent atom specifically, and with the triad in general. The Ajna is a mental chakra. Sometimes it will fulfill first, second, or third ray functions. Actually, when you begin to look at it, and you consider the astral Ajna as well, you can just about get every ray operating at the Ajna center. And I've gone through this before. The seventh ray is even involved in the astral chakra, and at a certain point the sixth ray and Neptune will come in. But anyway, the Ajna center is going to allow us to direct our personality life from the soul, and allow us also to be very aware of the spiritual triad. And because its number is 4, has 4 divisions in it, by numerical resonance we're going to connect with the Buddhic plane as well, especially if Mercury is operative with its fourth ray as the major ruler of the Ajna center. The Ajna represents also, we know earlier, the personality, the integrated personality. The number 4 is the number of integration. Integrated personality by itself, and then later because it is integrated with the soul. But it also relates to the triad, and we have to remember that number 4 is so important when relating to a personality. We have to remember, in a sense, that the spiritual triad is the personality of the monad. Now, the normal personality is the personality of the soul, but 3 become the 1. So there's a 4. And maybe this is true of the triad too, that the abstract mind, Buddhic transcendental mind, and the atmic mind are united together into some sort of 4, which is the higher correspondence of the fourfold lower personality. Well, it's threefold personality, but united together it makes a 4. The Ajna Center is involved with telepathy, we know, and the particular siddhi, which is connected with the monastic permanent atom and with the highest subplane of the mental plane, is spiritual telepathy. And of course Sagittarius helps with this reception of telepathy, which is why it's very connected with this ninth petal, one of the reasons, and Aries ruling the head and transmission via the head, so spiritual telepathy can come in there as well. The third eye here is emerging as the single eye. The 4 of the Ajna Center in a way become the 5. The 5 is the initiatory pyramid with the point above. There is also to be remembered the placement of the third eye, not so much at the Ajna Center, but working through it, because it's really in the center of the head, around the area of the pineal gland. And, you know, we can see how the 5th ray would be involved in rendering that third eye functional and truly seeing. The 5 gives way to the 1. The 5 is definitely connected with vision. And it is giving way to the number 1. In the Tetractys, as I've pointed out, the first point is directly above only the 5th point. Okay. The higher psychism is beginning to come in, and the Ajna Center is involved in that. The higher psychic powers are unfolding. Well, certainly the powers on the higher mental plane are unfolding. Spiritual discernment, response to group vibration, spiritual telepathy. So the Ajna Center is the center for psychism, and DK basically proves that to us when he begins to teach the disciple B.S.D., a British man, largely on the 3rd and 6th ray, but with the 5th ray mind, how to become more psychic. And his Ajna Center was poorly unfolded compared to the degree of unfoldment of the other centers, and so the attention to make him a psychic was directed straight to the Ajna Center. Well, Venus ruling there is important for that, but Mercury even more so, because Mercury has the ability to touch certain higher siddhi areas and transmit them into the normal consciousness. So higher psychism, in a way, is really a type of sensitivity based on the perception of unity. Lower psychism deals only with the condition of the form and not with the unitive soul. So the Ajna is very important here. You know, it is the center for the 3rd degree. And it's involved, of course, with its 5th ray, with science. It's involved with its 4th ray, with integration. We would want to turn to Rays and Initiations, page 340, to see integration, direction. That's so clear. And science. In a way, they're kind of like a 2, a 1, and a 3. A 3-5 for science, direction ray 1, and integration 2-4, direction kind of 1-6. But the 3 higher rays can be understood through these three words. Once there is true integration of the energy system of the soul with that of the personality, the way forward is seen, and the true science of the soul can be revealed. It's not the fifth ray type of integrative process reveals a relationship between soul and personality which is not that which is normally understood. It's a much more technical understanding of the dynamics of how the energy system of the soul and that of the personality interact. In my discussion of the techniques of integration from Esoteric Psychology 2, I've done a webinar series on that. I go through those and talk about the results of the integrative process as it occurs under the different rays. What chakric triangle is most implicated in relation to this petal? Well, we're dealing with page 70, really, of a treatise on cosmic fire. And, you know, we're talking about spiritual man here. It's not 70, it's 170, I'm sorry. Spiritual man to the third initiation, the heart, the throat, and the seven head centers. And if we go on beyond that, the seven head centers are there, the heart is as well, the throat is falling below the threshold, as are the knowledge petals, and the two many-petaled lotuses. There we have quite a clear statement to differentiate the seven head centers and the two many-petaled lotuses, and we would include in those the ajna and the many-petaled lotus, the head center, the crown center. Now if we want to add the alta and the heart and the head, we're going to come up with 14. So we're pretty well working towards the third initiation, at which point the seven head centers, but maybe not the complete fullness of the ajna. The seven head centers are operative, throat and heart still, but then we take off in a new direction with the everything the throat center can do, I think, being absorbed by the two many-petaled lotuses. So we have a 2 hovering above a 7, and maybe we'll have to also look at the alta. Well, that would make 10, wouldn't it? And I guess I spoke incorrectly. The heart and the head would make 11. Well, it is the number of the initiate. There's so much about the enumeration of the head center, which is implied in ancient drawings and paintings, about which we don't really know. But it's quite a complex center, and it may have even 10 levels in it. 10 times 96, which would be the 960 plus the 12 of the heart and the head, which would be the total of 972. It's not truly 1,000-petaled lotus. And that 972 is also going to be arrived at when we take 108 times 9. So the 972 is very important. The 108 and the 96 are very important. 7, well, let's see, how does it go when we're dealing with 12s? It's 9 12s give us 108, is that correct? 2 times 8, oh, that's 16. 9 12s. Oh, goodness, I'll just have to take out my paper, you know, being too far away from concrete math. I'm failing in that. So let's see, 12 times 9 equals 108. Okay, and so we have the 96 and 12. Let's see, let's divide 96. Okay, try to do this. Divide 96 by 12. Do we come up with anything? Wait, that must be multiplication. That's not working. Sorry here, I'm flunking math, okay? 96 divided by 12 equals 8. Okay. So the 8 12s give us the 96, and the 9 12s give us 108. Both are very sacred numbers and remind us of the 108 Kumaras, and the 96 times 10 giving us the number of petals in the highest head center. Well, kind of interesting that when Roberto Assagioli asked Master DK more about the head center, the master demurred a bit and said, look, this is not much is given out or can be given out, and this is one of the details here are one of the highest occult studies. Fortunately, so much of this will occur automatically without our attempted manipulation of the process. Basically, we just work within the head center, and the specifics of its unfoldment are left to the law. Later, perhaps as a master or under the guidance of a master, we might be able to involve ourselves in some particular manipulation. I will say that the head center, the ajna, and the alta, the triangle existing there, I think can be encouraged by the visual imagination. So anyway, the heart, the throat, and the 7 head centers take us from the 3rd degree, once that 9th petal is completely unfolded, to the 5th degree when the causal body is no more. Earlier on, the heart, the throat, and the 7 head centers takes us to the 3rd degree. And the 7 head centers are Vulcanian, just the way the Great Bear, so connected with Vulcan, rules the 7 head centers within the one about whom naught may be said. So Vulcan and the Sun may be one, and the head centers may start their activity at petal 5, but here we know they are all in expression. So the will has grown very strong. The will of the soul is definitely dominating now. The majority has been reached, the 3 over the 2, we might say, and we can control with the higher will so much that transpires within the personality. The lesser 7 and the greater 7 are involved, and it is let's see, as the disciple nears the portal, the greater 7 must awaken and bring forth response from the lesser 7 upon the double circle. So certainly the higher 7, all 7 are involved, and that, of course, connects Vulcan with the 7th ray, which is really just another more concrete expression of the Ray 1 will. Vulcan is also connected with Shambhala and the monad, so the higher will or monad is definitely now emerging. You know, as we have said, there are many triangles in the chakric system, many possible triangles, and they are all alight to various degrees, at least in the advanced person. It's just a question of what is most prominent, and that can be affected by the ray as well. So it's so intricate. You know, you begin to realize, well, there's so many things that would be nice to know. Master DK can see and can know these things, someone with such a great understanding of energy. But we have to be satisfied at first with less knowledge of the intricacies. It will be given to us when we can really use it, and I suspect that in the next dispensation of the teaching, much will be given. There are other chakras that are implicated here. Petal number 9, third degree, and which and why. The crown, the alta major, the throat, the heart, the base. Well, the crown is growing in power because the monad is becoming a conscious factor, and the monad is always connected via the atmic plane with the crown center, the high head center. And when we start to meditate, the monad stream is going to be real, and it's going to be a detectable thing. And this is, of course, being cultivated also between the second and third degree, but by the time the third degree occurs, Sanat Kumara has wielded the rod, and he is the Lord of Shambhala, and the monad has its presence within Shambhala. So the presence of God will be present as a detectable thing. The presence of electric fire, becomes real to our consciousness, and the presence and electric fire are, of course, closely correlated. What about the alta major? It's part of the triangle which evokes the third eye, which happens at the third initiation, in the pursuit of higher psychism and unitive vision, the eye of Shiva. Shiva is the first ray Lord, and the application of the rod in the 9th petal will bring forth the Shiva aspect. Again, of course, Aries has so much to do with Shiva. Aries, one of the great signs of the dance, and the dance of Shiva emerges here, the realization of the vibratory dance of Shiva. So the alta major is definitely emerging in relation to the ajna and the crown center, the two many petal lotuses, as they are called. But in some enumerations, the ajna, the alta major has not just 4 petals, but actually 96, just like the ajna center. So, you know, the last word in counting out all of these divisions is not yet given to us, and we'd have to piece together the many teachings and then see what we can see, and also, you know, have the confirmation on the master on this. It would be a good thing. So, you know, these 3 chakras, alta, ajna, and crown, are needed in relation to create the third eye, which is really emerging with higher psychism at the time of this third degree. It's the circulation between them that is bringing forth the emerging into functional usefulness of the third eye. So, you know, we can connect various aspects here. Vulcan of the great light, you know, the first ray, the eye of Shiva, and the entry of the higher psychism. The throat center is being transcended, but we will have brilliance of mind here, and with the throat one can speak the word of the soul. But, you know, after the third degree, it's kind of interesting, but the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus begin to melt away, begin to disintegrate, or the person is becoming more and more atma buddhi, more and more will and love, will and intuition. So the throat center and the knowledge petals are very connected, and they are not going to be as fully in use. We have gone into the head. And the alta is part of the head, but the throat center is not. So we know now as an initiate that not all things can be put into words. And so silence begins to take the place of speech, but one can, of course, transmit ideas in the silence. And as DK reminds us, before the judges, well, Christ was silent, was really the Master Jesus, or the Initiate Jesus. He was not dissipating tension in speech. So we have the entry into a comprehending silence, and we, of course, this implies the Buddhic plane and the lower level and the comprehension of the 4 sounds. But there are silences which do sound. So we do not necessarily have to create in the lower worlds through the throat center as we have been doing. So the alta is there, yes, and throat center, of course, the third degree initiate can still speak marvelously of the vision of the soul and so forth, but the attention is not there. It's just so very automatic. The heart center is found at the fourth degree very strongly, so certainly going to be found at the third, growing. The love of humanity and the contact with the Buddhic plane, because just as the higher head center has been connected with the atmic plane, so the heart has been connected with the Buddhic plane, and the heart and the head with the monadic plane. So the love of humanity in the group soul contributing to a growing sense of universality, because a little taste of isolated unity and of oneness is coming in at the third degree. Venus is connected with the heart center. Venus is on the mountain. Christ is risen on the mountain. We have the glorified soul, transfigured. Earth at the heart center. Well, I wonder what that can mean. You know, sometimes the fourfoldness of the heart, the physical heart, and the earth can be connected just like as the fourfold earth, its symbol at least, and the center at the base of the spine. Let's just say the soul at this point is 75% in charge. And the soul is the heart is the soul. These are equivalent terms when we begin to work symbolically here. The solar plexus center at this degree is increasingly quieted. I mean, it's not that there is not aspiration, as we work with Sagittarius in this petal, but it is quieted. The Stymphalian birds are quieted. We're into now increasingly reception of the impersonal life of the triad. The rich young man, well, after the third degree, he did go sadly away, but we have experienced the elevation of the solar plexus center into the heart. Passion becomes compassion. Perhaps he was still attached in some way through solar plexus functioning to possessing all that, to being rich. The ahamkara just was not defeated. That was the problem. He liked his spiritual possessions and was afraid of losing them. That tells us something about the solar plexus, but in general, this center is quieted down in a personal sense, and the desires generally at this point are now of the heart and soul. I quoted here Master Morya's statement, when have you ever become less through sacrifice? So when we all become the rich young man, we can ask ourselves that when the Christ says, sell all you have, give the money to the poor and follow me. When have you ever become less through sacrifice? We are a scorpionic kingdom, the group of monads, human monads. We have to get used to paradoxes here. We have to get used to this amazing scorpionic paradox that we have to die in order to live and give up in order to get. And if our cup is to run over, we must empty it. So AAB, for a time in her life, she was certainly involved with the solar plexus and the heart center, it was said, but I think that was before she really took the third degree, and in terms of her brilliance and making extraordinary revelation, I think we can honestly say that she stood as a third degree initiative. If Roberto Assagioli did, I see no reason to suspect that AAB did not. I mean, some people like to minimize her status, and minimize the status of HPB too. You know, she drank, she swore, she smoked cigars. Okay. But I think if we really look under the statement of the Christ, by their fruits ye shall know them. Oh, got a lot of static there. By their fruits ye shall know them. I think we cannot doubt what Alice Bailey was. So, solar plexus quieted. And what about Neptune, that part of the solar plexus center? well, it will be more stimulated than the lower. The higher desires will take the place. We are transcending personal desire, and before we take the third degree, Neptune has to be very active, and after we take the third degree, Neptune is active in coordinating the Buddhic vehicle. So Mars is the red, the lower point, the low desire. That part is really quieted. Mars is a pretty noisy planet anyway. And we enter into the silence of Buddhi. We understand about the silence of Neptune and that which can be wordlessly transmitted via Neptune, the Buddhic transmission. So maybe the higher part of the solar plexus is taking care of whatever transference remains. But at the third degree and afterwards, Neptune is involved with telepathy and with the transmission of the intuition increasingly, with Buddhic contact. Neptune is all part of this process. Interestingly, at the third degree, we do defeat Mars and the Moon. Or let's just say the Moon, Mars is defeated and the normal Moon is defeated, but that which the Moon veils is the method of defeat. It's the spiritual will. So Mars and the Moon rule the lunar vehicles, as we're shown in this table of creative hierarchies. You've seen that many times, I suspect, but just to refresh our memory, going to page 35, we have seen the 7 creative hierarchies, and can I make that any bigger? I don't know, but right down here, the lunar lords, Mars, and since they are lunar lords, the Moon. Yeah, I had another way to get into that and can show it better. And there it is, Mars and the Moon. Lunar, Moon, Mars, the ruler. Interesting what happens to those lunar lords in relation to this 9th petal, because Sagittarius is so important. They really are entirely reoriented, properly reoriented. But the factor which defeats the normal Moon and Mars is Vulcan. So Mars and Moon are all about personality control, and we are released from that, from the ancient authority. And when we deal with authority, we deal with will, and Vulcan is the planet of will. This planet of will is applied, subjecting us now to the authority of the soul. Or we, the soul, subject our personality to our soul authority. Mars and Moon no longer have the kind of authority they did. So to defeat Mars and Moon, our desire nature is entirely transmuted, and we desire the higher worlds and not the lower ones. And even in Petal 8 this was operative, but here at Petal 9, when fully unfolded, we really do conquer the personality. Its ancient authority is defeated. When it comes to the sacral center, well, it can be used for the purposes of having children, largely. That's what the Dalai Lama said. That's what the Tibetan seems to imply. But it is an evoked center and not really one of the major centers. It maybe can contribute to manifestation because it's so connected to the physical plane. But it is not the pursuit of sex for its own sake, but always the purposeful use of the sex impulse. And Uranus, which is so important at this third degree, is definitely the ruler of the sacral center at this point. What about the base of the spine center? Well, it is becoming increasingly active. It relates to the number 4. It represents the will of the personality. It is will, and the high head center is purpose. So we're learning something about the will to be at this third initiation, full unfoldment of the 9th petal. There's a link here then between Vulcan, which normally rules the head center, but Uranus does as well at this point, and Pluto, which rules the base of the spine. And we're beginning with this will to be, which will be, I suppose, in a way consummated well, I would almost think of the seventh initiation, when we achieve operational release from the limitations of the monadic vehicle. How can we talk about limitations of that vehicle? And yet, if the volatile essence is to be released into the sea of fire, there will be limitations of the monadic vehicle. All temples must be destroyed. Vulcan. Could it be ruby red? Mars is generally connected with the ruby and the sixth ray. Vulcan seems to have the orange and red quality together. But Morya is so connected with Aries, and he loves ruby red. It emerges in his discussions. He has certain preferences, and those preferences are brought forth. Mix yellow and red, and we get orange. Well, maybe Vulcan is involved in that way. So I think we've looked at we've looked at the different planets that can be involved at this point. We've gone through maybe only a third of this outline. Maybe this last Synthesis of Petal 9 will be the longest, but later some of them are shorter. So all of these, we've been looking at the chakras involved, and not yet the planets, but I've begun to mention the planets, if they are related to particular chakras. So, the head center, definitely the will is becoming powerful. The 7 head centers, of course, they have the Vulcanian aspect. The third degree is being taken, so the chakra that controls that degree, the Ajna center, is involved. The throat is subsiding. The heart is growing stronger. Solar plexus is quieting. Sacral center is subdued, and the base of the spine center is heating up. And all, in all of this, we can begin to assess our own position. You can get lost when you think of, where you are in this great developmental process. So many things happening, but they do tend to accelerate and sort of pile on top of each other as we reach the cyclic end of the human phase of development. As I've told so many people, if you've taken the first degree, maybe you've had not only 99% of your incarnations, but 99.9% of your incarnations. A high number of incarnations have been taken. And so, although we may become a little impatient, we are nearing the end of the human stage of development. With respect to the astral chakras, well, most of them are found here. They'll all be involved. The head, the heart. They must be involved fairly early in the game, but we are already transcending the astral plane. The mental chakras, of course, have to be involved, but then every type of petal, because the petals themselves represent chakras. They are energy sources, and eventually, I think, when they are destroyed, other kinds of chakras take their place to contribute to the 35 vortices of force which make the master. If we look at esoteric healing, and okay, oh, that's not what I want. I keep on forgetting which button to press. Oh, there we go. So esoteric healing, and is it page 51 or 151? Let's just see. Well, it looks like page 51, but all of these factors are involved. Sacrifice, dedication of the I, which now realizes itself to be something else. Soul love, of course, group love, of course. Parental love is not the main thing, but certainly it will be there to a high degree if such people have children. The group life, the blending of the mystic and the occultist, because Neptune and Uranus will be blended. creativity, the soul creativity, sensitivity, inspiration. Aspiration may be dying down a little bit, but because we approach the third degree from the level tableland, we are told it's more of a mental approach, but we're certainly going in the right direction. And we can become the white magician. So you can see with this last column how many of the astral chakras would be involved. Some more than others. The mental chakras, we're not told what they will do. We're told there is a mental center, I think maybe somewhere between the heart center and the throat center, and it would be involved. But there are some yogic expressions which are not fully given here. What's the ray most implicated here? Well, for the third degree, it's the fifth ray. Sagittarius, interestingly, does give the fifth ray, 4, 5, and 6. So it's a great exploration of far spaces and of higher spaces, a scientific exploration. Ray 5, of course, for illumination, and that's what the Transfiguration gives. There is some mental illumination, but it really comes out as the transfiguring blaze of glory for the ninth petal and at the third degree. The enlightenment comes. The Satori comes. It's the unfoldment of this petal, sort of under the Brahmic regime, which has been so popular by other terms and names in the various traditions. The Satori of the Japanese, the enlightenment of the Buddhist. This is what we're finding here. Now, obviously, Satoris go on forever and enlightenments are ever progressive, but we really understand what we are and what we are not, and the illusion of our involvement in the lower three worlds, as if we really belong there, certainly has ended at this point. I think that, this would be a good place to stop, because you're going to get quite involved here with the other rays that are involved at this ninth petal. I mean, as we've understood more and more of the different factors, whether planetary, zodiacal, or ray factors, are involved with these more complex petals, which are involved in synthesizing our long experience as a human being. So this will be, all I have to do is get it right. Well, that's not it. So easy to forget. The end of Egoic Lotus webinar, program 57. And this is part 1 of Synthesis for Petal 9, and it's going to be about 3 hours. And we'll have the beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary, program 58, part 2. We still have a long way to go, but we are actually synthesizing. I'll actually, have less to say about the synthesis petals because DK had less to say about them. I have some things, and I'll be commenting mostly on what he said with also some speculation. It's not that we have not entered the realm of synthesis. For those of us who have taken the first initiation, we have entered that. The first synthesis petal has somewhat unfolded as a result of the first initiation. And, are we working in those petals the way we work to organize, coordinate, vitalize in the other petals? I'm not sure. But is it usually unfoldment has to occur because work has been done. So maybe we're working as we're approaching the second degree at bringing things together, because at the first degree, the first synthesis petal does somewhat unfold. How much, we don't know, but obviously the further you go on the path of evolution, the wider your consciousness becomes, and the more capable you are of seeing things together and in relation and as a whole. So this will be then, we'll go on. You know, I'm eager to get into the synthesis petals, not because I know so much, but because, you know, it's really interesting to speculate into. They're of a different order. You know, they are the lemon yellow, the beautiful lemon yellow of Buddhi. Probably different from the yellow of the mind, the yellow of the transcendental mind. Be interesting to do that. So for the time being now, friends, I will say goodbye and maybe later come in on program 58, which will be part 2 of the synthesis for Petal 9. And we'll see you before long. I hope you've had the patience to live through some of this. If you have gotten this far in this series of programs, you have to have a special reward. What should that reward be? Well, ideally, it would be knowledge and wisdom. Hopefully. Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.